The following presentation is part of the Beyond the Blast Doors network.
From the farthest reaches of the galaxy, the Midwest, you're watching Beyond the Blast Doors live.
Episode 82 of Beyond the Blast Doors Make Solo 2 Happen, a viral sensation on May 25th, 2020. Welcome into BTBD Live, like I said, episode 82, and I am so excited to be with you in this moment talking Star Wars. Once again, this episode of BTBD Live is not live. I don't want to lie to you. Why am I not live in this moment? It's because while we're watching this conversation together, I am going to be less than 24 hours away from marrying the very beautiful Mandy Vandiver. She becomes Mandy Amilati. I'm excited about it. She's excited about it. Thank goodness she doesn't have to write a check because I don't think you can actually write her full name on the dotted line. So with that all said, we're very excited. It's a reason to celebrate. And then when you add in all the Star Wars fun, it's just over the top. We explode with excitement and enthusiasm because it's a great time to be alive. But want to say thank you, first off, everyone sending kind words. Put out a tweet a couple of days ago asking for Twitter questions that we will get to at the end of the show. And a lot of people reached out saying congratulations. So Mandy and I are very excited about it. And I know I'm marrying the right girl because to record this episode, our last night before driving home to our family, I got like 3 hours to put this whole thing together. And she was totally cool with it, so I'm a lucky guy. What we celebrated, though, as Star Wars fans this week, that's the best segue I could do, is Make Solo 2 Happen. It is a viral sensation. It happened last year, and it happened again this year, but it happened faster. It was louder. It was bigger. There was more enthusiasm. You still had the big names tweeting about it. You had all the fans talking about it, at least 25,000, maybe even more than 30,000. A lot of tweets to make the hashtag go viral. Of course, we're talking about hashtag Make Solo 2 Happen, and it originates 2 years ago as kind of a joke. John Hoey over at the Resistance Broadcast, he's also the lead writer for StarWarsNewsNet.com, and he does the podcast every week, and he and Lacey and James Baney were making jokes about, how can we bring some attention to a Star Wars story that deserves far much more love, and they started this hashtag. And a year of built-up hype. May 25th last year celebrated Make Solo 2 Happen, and it was everywhere on the internet. But a lot of people were very unsure what this was actually about. And it's very evident that a second year of explaining the hashtag and this movement, it's gone from a joke to this viral sensation. And coming up on the show, we're actually going to hear from James Baney from the Resistance Broadcast. He's going to join us on the show here tonight. We're going to have a conversation about what really did inspire the movement. It's based on what I've told you, but he kind of goes a little bit more in depth, talks more about how we want to do it bigger and better next year because, it's this, little inside joke that's grown into this like global event. And of course, we talk about what else excites him with Star Wars. I think you'll be very excited and surprised at the series that has James Baney's interest when it comes to the next Star Wars story, wetting his lips. I was going to say wetting his imagination, but that's not technically the cliche. But I do want to say big thanks to James for joining me on the show. We'll get to him in a couple of minutes. But yeah, just want to start with reaction to Make Solo 2 Happen, a very successful day on May 25th. If you're watching right now on YouTube, the premiere, be sure you let me know in the live chat what your biggest, favorite, most loved memory of the day was. Was it seeing all the positivity on social media? Was it getting to rewatch that movie, having an excuse? We're in the middle still of a global pandemic. You have all the excuse in the world to watch this movie again, but was this an added bonus? Let us know in the live chat. For me, for a fandom that gets ridiculed about eating itself up, with negativity and spitefulness, we got a break from that. It was rejuvenating. May 25th, 2020 was a day that we here at Beyond the Blast Doors, BTBD Live, Beyond the Blast Doors Network, we had it on our calendar for the entire year. We knew this day was coming. In fact, here on the network, the 6 days leading up to Make Solo 2 Happen Day, we put out a new article. We were counting down the last 6 days, and we were giving you reasons why we should have a next chapter in this story. And when we finally hit the day of, you saw thousands of fans across the world simultaneously rejoicing at a fun adventure. Is it Empire Strikes Back? Is it not just a great Star Wars movie, but one of the greatest cinematic achievements of all time? Probably not. But it's a fun popcorn flick. It's a good movie to go to and let yourself kind of sink in and just have fun. It feels to me, in a way, the purest sense of what George Lucas was trying to do with these movies, these serialized tellings of heroes and villains and spaceships and lightsabers and wizards, and it goes on and on and on. Remember, Ron Howard directed this movie, but this was a movie that was wanted by George Lucas, that Larry Kasdan was writing. He finishes it with his son, John, both aware of the hashtag Make Solo 2 Happen movement. We saw them get involved last year, and they were aware of it again this year. You have freaking Chewbacca is tweeting about Make Solo 2 Happen. That's big. That's huge. When you have the actors themselves pushing for more of the story, and not because they need a gig to get a paycheck, but because they're fans themselves. They want to see this story happen. The timing is a little inconvenient. As we have this very positive, healthy fan movement where we're celebrating the Star Wars story we have and the people we get to celebrate that story with, it also comes out days earlier that the Snyder Cut of the Justice League is going to be released. And I think people get confused. There is a lot of negativity, and there is a lot of, well, honestly, it's fans being brats, and it looks like, in a way, that WB is caving to the fan demand for the Snyder Cut. I was not one of those people, but I will gladly watch it, looking forward to seeing that. But Make Solo 2 Happen is not that movement. Fans here aren't demanding out of hate and anger and angst. Star Wars fans love this story. They like these characters. They identify with the characters, the story that they're on, the obstacles that they're faced with. We connect on a lot of different levels. Whether you feel isolated and abandoned and wanting to achieve dreams like a Han Solo, or maybe you don't feel like your situation can be better, and so you turn to vice and destruction like Kira. Maybe there's something that happens in your life where you're crippled with rage, and you're having to combat that like Darth Maul, ultimately falling. Because Darth Maul, as we see in mythology of thousands of years ago, Maul will always be burdened with a rock at the top of the hill, only to fall back down, to have to push it up again. These are the characters that we identify. And there's new characters, too, that we want to explore. And we will dive into that as well as we continue the next 35, 40 minutes, a shorter episode of BTBD Live here, but nonetheless, we will tackle it all. I do, though, just want to highlight some excitement when it comes to Make Solo 2 Happen and seeing some of the tweets that we saw. I want to take a look at some of those. Just want to remind you, though, you can always catch BTBD Live on YouTube Thursday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Usually we're live. We're making a compromise here this week, recording it a day early, but nonetheless, still a very relevant conversation. Of course, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, all those locations you can find BTBD Live and all the fun shows on the Beyond the Blast Doors network. So now, I mentioned Make Solo 2 Happen. I kind of did a nice little opening soliloquy on that. I think it's really cool that this effort was able to go viral, go trending on Twitter, not just in America. This was a global thing. A lot of people know about Solo 2 and the hashtag Make Solo 2 Happen. If they didn't know about it after last year, they sure as hell know about it this year. We did a write-up that morning about the fact that Star Wars fans just wasted no time. As the world hit midnight in the various time zones across the globe, you saw Make Solo 2 happen. And it's an effort that mirrors the Clone Wars Saved effort. Of course, fans tweeting for, almost a decade, right? Trying to get the Clone Wars back. Of course, Clone Wars Saved happens. We get the final season of Clone Wars just wrapped up on Disney+. It mirrors that effort. It's a little bit different, though. Clone Wars had 6 seasons ultimately for fans to fall in love with, to digest, and to blow up blow up social media platforms with reasons why we need Clone Wars. It's a smaller core audience that know about Solo. If we're being honest, it is the cult classic of Star Wars movies. Solo had a bomb of a box office. We've talked about it before. $213 million in the U.S., $179 million elsewhere. This movie had to make $500 million to break even. Listen, it made shy of $400 million. It was a ball buster and a killjoy for the momentum that Star Wars felt like it was on, especially after the controversial, we don't need to get into that. Collider did, though, report, pardon me, back in June of 2018, because of Solo's poor performance, all the other anthology projects were put on hold, but Lucasfilm did immediately deny that. So we break all this down here on the story. Want to celebrate, though, some of the social media reaction. Make Solo 2 happen was a tongue-in-cheek idea because I felt Solo deserved a better fate, and now it turned into this big fan movement. This tweet from John Hoey, the guy that's responsible for it all. Lacey is one of his co-hosts on the Resistance broadcast. More adventures of Han, Chewie, Kira Lando, Enfys Nest, Maul. What do you say? A lot of people liked it. 1,600 people. Corellian Blue. That's right. Make Solo 2 happen. Our good friend of our show. Basically, honestly, Adam's a friend of a lot of shows. Adam's a great guy. He's putting out there his support. Adam was tweeted at places. Listen, this guy was on like IGN. This guy was everywhere. He is a huge positive force when it comes to Star Wars, and especially the Make Solo 2 happen effort. Love when this guy puts stuff out there on social media. He had the whole family cheering on this effort, and that's what it's all about. I think it's about the stories that we have and those we get to celebrate them with. I think that, honestly, Adam, you're the dad of the year for how much Star Wars that you infect your family with. I think it's wonderful. Going back, though, to the story, just a few more. I mean, I selfishly, I put myself down here. I included myself in the own article. But it's just really cool, just a sample of the positive words and the positivity that was going on social media very early in the morning. That was a very small snippet. And again, 25 to 30,000 tweets globally about Make Solo 2 happen. That's what gets the hashtag to trend. And that's what this conversation is about, is just celebrating it. Right now, we're kind of in a void. Disney Plus, we are seeing The Mandalorian, the Disney Gallery behind the scenes look, and that's all very exciting. We just found out that the High Republic novel comic series crossover event with Del Rey and Marvel is it's on a pause. We're pausing the High Republic. We are delaying that to 2021 because of the pandemic. So Charles Soule's novel, you had Claudia Gray's novel, you had Kevin Scott's miniseries that he was working on, series rather that he was working on. All that is delayed to 2021. And so what can we fill the void with? Well, if we cannot make Solo 2 happen to fill that void, we might as well spend our energy trying to just talk about Star Wars, why we love Star Wars, especially when it comes to Solo 2. Now, whether that can be in the theater or if that should be on Disney Plus, we'll tackle that in a little bit. But what I want to do right now is I want to remind you that when you wake up every morning, every day, whenever you wake up, maybe you don't wake up in the morning, but we want you to get your Star Wars fix. First place you go to right here on your screen, beyondtheblastdoors.com. Okay, every day we're posting news and reviews right here. But when you go to our website, you're actually able to get not just the latest news and reviews and opinion pieces that we post, but also the latest episodes of the 6 shows offered here on the Beyond the Blast Doors Network. We want to give you a complete experience. The latest live shows, our podcast feeds, the news, the speculation, the opinion pieces. Like I mentioned, we do comic book reviews, all written by BTBD network personalities you enjoy now online right now. Disney's Star Wars Jedi Temple Challenge. We got the trailer on Wednesday. That was May 27th that we got that. So, This is a series that drops June 3rd. We'll get the first 2 full episodes. Star Wars Jedi Temple Challenge. It's a series that's clearly for the kids and families to enjoy. We've got the entire Lucasfilm statement right now on our website, plus a tweet that is climaxing on your screen right now if you're watching the live show. But this is from Ahmad Best, who is the host. Of course, famously played Jar Jar Binks in the prequels, but he is the host, and he is in Jedi garb for this show. You can see his tweet, and of course, we've included the trailer there on your screen for that. So a really exciting time. An exciting time to be a Star Wars fan, just because there is so much content that is being created. So what we're going to do is we are going to step aside here real quick, and when we come back from a 5-second station ID, we will be joined with James Bainey here on BTBD Live.
The following presentation is part of the Beyond the Blast Doors network.
Welcome back to BTBD Live, episode 82, joined with a special guest, now a third of the Resistance broadcast, Star Wars Newsnet's podcast. They drop 2 episodes a week, and they are the leaders of the effort, known as Make Solo 2 Happen, with the classic hashtag Make Solo 2 Happen. I'm pleased to bring on my guest tonight. We have Mr. James Bainey. James, welcome on to BTBD Live, sir. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, man. Glad to be here. This is cool.
We're going to be talking about, obviously, the Make Solo 2 Happen campaign, but obviously James is a fan just like many of us. We love to celebrate the Star Wars fandom, so we'll be talking into a few different of the nooks and crannies in the Star Wars fandom, but I guess we're still kind of coming off the high that was May 25th, which saw Make Solo 2 Happen go trend on social media. And I kind of want to know how you're feeling in this moment. Are you still on a high from that success? Thousands and thousands of fans responding to that effort that's 2 years in the making?
Yes, absolutely. Now it's so crazy because you always you hope that something can happen, but you never know how crazy it could get, you know? It's just kind of one of those things, like you know that it's out of your hands, so you're just like, well, I'm just going to keep writing it for a little while and see how long it goes. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's pretty crazy that people take to it and it catches, and then people who don't even know who we are like, oh, this is trending. Okay, cool. And then they pick it up, which I think is part of why it's successful, is because we're not trying to make something unpopular trend. It's like a popular idea that people really like this movie and they would like to see it continued in some fashion.
It's a Star Wars movie that surprisingly a lot of people continue to find out day after day, week after week, year after year, just because of the box office. And that storyline has kind of been beaten to the ground. Yeah, we know a lot of people didn't turn out to that theater for whatever reason, if it was the marketing or if it was, whatever other reason. There was also a bigger movie coming out that weekend, to be quite frank.
Absolutely.
But can you take us to that moment where maybe it's you, John, and Lacey talking about, this was a good Star Wars story, more people need to know about it. Can you talk about the formation of what has really become a fan movement?
Well, I laugh a little bit only because to me and the rest of the Resistance broadcast, it was not supposed to be a movement. It was supposed to be a joke, kind of. Obviously, you know, we love Star Wars, and just with any joke, when you're joking about Star Wars, it comes from a place of goodwill. And so we were kind of like, hey, we really like this movie, and wouldn't it be great if there was a Solo 2? It's almost the tongue-in-cheek to like, could you see Rogue 2? Like us making a Rogue 2 shirt, you know? In the sense that obviously there isn't going to be a Rogue 2 because there's Rogue 1, and then so it kind of came from that mindset, and we were like, hey, we like this movie and we thought it was really good. Let's do this thing, this Make Solo 2 Happen. And it started as a t-shirt, and then whenever somebody would say something along the lines of, hey, I actually really like that movie, I know I'm in the minority, it was really easy to pop in and be like, yo, I like that movie too. We like that movie. We loved it, you know? It would be great for this and great for this. You know what? we stand for the sequel. They should make Solo 2 happen. And yeah, it caught on because, like I said before, I think the goodwill is what people find so interesting about it.
It's fun to talk Star Wars with fans of Star Wars, and you get to explore the idea of if we got another story, whether that's a movie or a TV series, it would be fun to revisit what's happening with maybe Kira and Maul, or maybe what's happening with the rebellion and how it's forming, maybe in the background. I think a lot of people are assuming that maybe there would be maybe you could do like a gangster type movie with the Hutts involved. Maybe go to like Nar Hutta. There's a lot of theories that got shared in the last couple of days on social media thanks to the hashtag. Maybe that leads us into the next best spot, which is if you could sit down with Kathleen Kennedy and all the creators there at Lucasfilm, and you, James, got to decide how we get Solo 2. How does it look? How would it look if you got the final say?
Well, do you mean movie wise or
it could
like
be a movie, or would you rather
wise?
see it be a Disney Plus series?
The thing is I think that the overwhelming response that we get from it is, hey, we love the character, we love the movie, we love the idea behind it, but I think most people are like, but you got to think it would work better as a series. And I tend to fall into that category as well. I mean, I could come up with storylines, till I'm blue in the face. It's never going to be as good as something like that what John Kasdan could come up with. But at the end of the day, yeah, I think that if I had a switch and, I could say it's going to be a series or it's going to be a movie, I think that Make Solo 2 Happen is more about the continuation of the characters and the stories, specifically Han and Chewie. But hey, we are open to the ideas of all the other characters too. So I think the Disney Plus series is probably the best way to go from a canon Star Wars fan of just Star Wars stuff in general, but also specifically from a financial standpoint. I think they have the least amount to lose if they try it as a series, if they try to work it that way at that angle.
I think you're right, and I think because we've had so much time pass since the original Solo Star Wars story. I mean, for me personally, I think that if you introduce like a Maul and then you have the Kira dynamic where she like, let's say she does go back to Dathomir, meets up with him, and that's what we would see on screen. If that's a 2-hour movie, I feel like those two characters upstage anything else that happens that movie. With a limited series on Disney Plus, I feel like those character storylines individually get to breathe a little bit more, and even if there is overlap, it's still Solo's story. But I just feel like that Easter egg at the end of Solo and bringing Maul back to the screen in that manner, I just feel like if this story does get told, and of course here at BTBD Live across the Beyond the Blast Doors network, obviously on your end with the Resistance broadcast, we want to see that story happen. Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think a series has to be the way they do it to give each one of these characters the TLC that I think that a lot of fans of these characters want them to experience.
For sure. Yeah. I think it would be great. We'd love to see it happen. Who knows? I mean, at the end of the day, those stories are going to get told. They're going to write a book. They're going to make a comic or something. We just, in support of the best stories get put in live action storytelling, that's kind of where our mindset is.
Now, you mentioned John Kasdan. Of course, John and his dad, Larry, they wrote the screenplay. Make Solo 2 Happen has caught the eye of folks involved behind and in front of the camera. Can we rattle off real quick, James, who all has seen that you are aware of? As far as celebrity goes?
A lot of names, yeah. I mean, it's just it just kind of depends on what angle you're looking at. Sometimes it's people who worked in the art department, people who worked in the music department, even actors and directors and screenwriters, and it's nonstop. And I mentioned just those last three just right off, like John Kasdan has mentioned it, Ron Howard has mentioned it, and Jonas Sutomo has mentioned it, and among others. But those are some top names that have acknowledged the movement and said, hey, if possible, I'd love to come back. I'd love to work on this again. We'll see.
Well, how cool is it to have Jonas come on the show? You guys did a special episode for Make Solo 2 Day Happen, and or Make Solo 2 Happen Day, I should say. and you're able to have him feature on the show. I mean, how cool is that? That there's like we live in a world like 2020 has a lot of bad things happening, but you do have the opportunity to sit down with these actors who bring these stories to life.
No, I mean, yeah, it was awesome. Great guy. So glad that, it worked out. We were able to, get together with him and ask him a couple questions, even ones that weren't even about Solo. We talked to him a little bit about basketball and the Michael Jordan legacy, if you will. And no, it was a great interview. We had a lot of fun, and it's really, I don't know if humbling is the right word, but it's really cool to like follow someone of that caliber being involved in the movies and being a podcast and a fan and, following these actors and stuff. And then to be like, with them and talking to them and being able to hear them acknowledge you by name, by your work name. He says the Resistance broadcast. It's like, it's just such a cool thing. And, I still kind of can't believe that we were able to do it, but shout out to him for coming on and doing all that and make Solo 2 happen, right? Yeah,
absolutely. Made a lot of fans happy too. And we say fans of the show, but in a way, we all become friends in the Star Wars community. Mm-hmm. And this year, I would say that the hashtag trended significantly faster than the year prior. And also, I think it was 25,000, almost 30,000 folks had tweeted about this on May 25th. Do we have any goals for next year? I mean, we have to do it bigger, right, James?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we don't do it next year because they make Solo 2 happen.
Good point. Well played.
Yeah, I mean, we're never looking to set a goal. I think the idea is, just to celebrate the movie for what it is and to celebrate the positivity of, hey, how people say Star Wars fandom is rough sometimes? It's not all rough, man. There are lots of people who really love what Star Wars is doing, in the Disney era and all this other stuff. It can get hard sometimes, but we really like what they're doing and we really like celebrating what they're doing. So this was just one extension of it.
James Baney here on BTBD Live on a Thursday, joining us to talk about Make Solo 2 Happen, the famous hashtag that started out as a joke, James says, and has become a fan movement. We don't want to talk all things Solo. Our time is running to an end here together. So real quick, let's just throw a dart on the wall and see where it sticks. James, a lot of Star Wars content is dropping. We just saw the trailer for Ahmed Best's new show on Disney Plus drop next month. That doesn't have to be your answer by any means, but what's the next Star Wars thing that is getting you excited?
Well, I think listeners of the Resistance broadcast will know Cassian Andor, man. I cannot wait for that show. I'm a huge fan of Rogue One. I love him. I love the movies that he's done, and I cannot wait for the series, man. Because even before that was announced, I had kicked around Cassian as a name for my son, just because I was like, I love the character and I love his story. And when we found out that he was getting his own Disney Plus series, I was like, dude, that is going to be so good. And then they started talking about who was writing it and, showrunners and all this other stuff. And I was just like, man, that's my number one. That is by far my number one. I'm excited for Cassian Andor.
That makes me really happy. I think that The Mandalorian and its success overshadows other projects, and I'm right there with you. I personally think that Rogue One is the best theatrical Star Wars story that has happened in the Star Wars era, and not that that's not a slam on any of the others. I just think it really captured the grittiness and that spirit of the original films, and I'm thrilled to see the rebellion. Not so clearly the good guys, right? I think one thing that the new Star Wars stories have done really well is shown the gray area that sometimes the rebels have to play dirty too in order to win. And so I think seeing that through Cassian's eyes more in that series, it's just going to be so much fun.
Yeah. I mean, like when you look at today's television, you're looking at the shows that are like some of the more popular ones. It's when characters have to do good and bad, or bad to do good, or they feel like they're in it for the right reasons, but they're doing obviously terrible things and they're kind of falling into that pattern or whatever. And we know Cassian's story. We know that where he's at when he starts Rogue One and where he ends up. But I want to see a show, where he's totally in the wrong, if you will. Like he's kind of doing the bad stuff because he feels like that's what's necessary. And to see what his views are and why, he thinks that way, like this has to be done for these reasons, and I'm going to be the person who has to do it. Sucks, but it has to be done. I'm just pumped. Absolutely pumped for it.
We should all be excited, man. It's Star Wars stories, and a mantra that we've been saying on the show here lately is let's celebrate the stories we have and the people we get to share them with. Let's just have a good time.
Yeah.
That's what we get to do. And part of that celebration is like what we're doing right now. James, thank you so much for coming on to BTBD Live. Of course, this week recorded, but nonetheless, glad to have you in this moment with us. Of course, you can always find James on the Resistance broadcast every Monday and Thursday. Those new episodes drop. Sometimes they throw out some bonus stuff. Always a fun treat to see what you guys have cooking over at the Resistance broadcast, part of StarWarsNewsNet.com. And James, if people want to follow you on Twitter, what's the best way to find you?
Well, at RBATSWNN is the Resistance broadcast, and for me personally, at Myra Trunks. It's kind of weird. It's a Dragon Ball Z reference. I don't know if anybody knows that, but it's MIRAHTRUNKS. You don't need to know what it is. Just click on it.
Always meant to bring it up to you. Of course, you and I met face to face last year at Star Wars Celebration in Chicago. Will you'll make it out to Celebration again this year if it does happen?
If it does happen, yeah, absolutely, we'll be there. We've purchased our tickets, our hotels, everything. We're just kind of on the waiting list, just like everybody else right now.
James Bainey, thank you so much.
Thank you, man. It's been great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. When we come back here on BTBD Live after a quick break, we're going to break down some of our speculation about the potential of a Solo 2, the planets we want to visit, the characters we want to return, all that and more next here on BTBD Live.
All wings report in. Brand new Beyond the Blast Door collector pins are now in stock. Help spread the word about the Beyond the Blast Door Star Wars conversation by picking up a brand new exclusive show pin. Pins are only $8. Order and pay online at BeyondTheBlastDoors.com. Movies, TV. All wings report in. Brand new Beyond the Blast Door collector pins are now in stock. Help spread the word about the Beyond the Blast Door Star Wars conversation by picking up a brand new exclusive show pin. Pins are only $8. Order and pay online at BeyondTheBlastDoors.com. Movies, TV, comics, toys, cosplay. Beyond the Blast Doors, a Star Wars conversation.
So excited to talk about those pins. We decided to play that one twice. Hey, we're still here on episode 82 of BTBD Live. So glad that you're with us. Yes, we still have some of those original pins, so if you're interested in any of those, please go ahead and check those out at BeyondTheBlastDoors.com. And honestly, if you don't, we just give them away free because, hey, you know what? New logo, rebranding, new pins. We're still talking Solo 2 in this moment, and real quick, what I want to do before we dive into fan questions is take a look at some of the reasons why we want to make Solo 2 happen. And again, thanks for James for joining us here on this episode. I want to first start with the characters. What are the 6 characters that we think that we need to see again in this Solo sequel? And it seems really obvious. Han Solo would be a really great place to start in a Solo 2 movie. And again, these aren't demands. These are just, it's just fun speculation. We're fantasizing over if we had Solo 2 happen, whether that's a movie or a series. I personally think it is best to have it be a series. Like I said with James, I think that it's a better served story if it's done over 6 or 8 episodes, 1 or 2 seasons, than another 2.5-hour film. I think there's evidence that the story is just not the best for a theatrical release. But nonetheless, we did a lot of fun stuff on BeyondTheBlastDoors.com the last couple of days. Like I said, the 6 days leading up, we did a bunch of fun stories. This one was one that I did, 6 Star Wars characters that we want to see if a Solo sequel does happen. And it's not if, it will happen, right? Hashtag make Solo 2 happen. And real quick, right off the top, Jabba the Hutt makes a lot of sense. That's where Han and Chewie are going at the end of Solo. If I remember the ending of the movie correctly, they got to go talk to Jabba the Hutt and wonder what kind of deal that could be. There is an overarching story line that I'm pushing. If I had it my way, a Goodfellas or Casino type kind of gangster movie. The Hutts are being attacked. Maybe Crimson Dawn is there to take them out. Just some speculation on my part. I think that would be really fun to see Jabba the Hutt kind of in a vulnerable spot. But maybe that's too similar to what we saw with the Clone Wars movie that dropped in 2008. You know, Jabba's son gets kidnapped, right? And we spend the whole movie getting Stinky back or whatever the hell his name was. So still, if somehow the Hutt family was under attack and it ended up being Crimson Dawn, that'd be really fascinating. But at the same time, maybe Crimson Dawn has bigger fish to fry, bigger vision from its leader Maul than just the Hutts on Tatooine. But nonetheless, I think it could be fun. You see his head popping out. The Grand Inquisitor would be great. And I got to tell you, when you think about the possibility of characters from cartoon or comics coming to the big screen, to me, the Grand Inquisitor has to be at the top of this list. Also, it helps that there was an interview within like the last week and a half where Jason Isaac, the guy that plays the voice of the Grand Inquisitor, the guy who played Lucius Malfoy in Harry Potter, he said that there's one character he's voicing he wants to perform. It's the Grand Inquisitor. This would be a lot of fun. You're in this time period where the Empire is still kind of in its infancy. It's expanding its galactic conquest, and Vader is hunting down the remnants of the Jedi Order and Force-sensitive beings. We don't need a Vader in a Solo sequel, and honestly, you don't want Vader to come across Han Solo or Solo come across Vader. But here's a great way to kind of include like a Force being, the Sith. The Inquisitors are, in a lot of cases, Jedi fallen from grace. They become agents for the Empire. This would be a lot of fun, the Grand Inquisitor. Lando, duh. I don't need him working at a tiki bar or, like something ridiculous. I'd kind of like a Lando starting to make a name for himself in Cloud City at Bespin. I think it'd be interesting. It was a false front, and he tried to do a little bit more swindling. But yeah, to the public, it's a bunch of clean, healthy business practice on Cloud City. But there's just something about Donald Glover and the fact that he was really able to capture the charm. He's really able to capture the charm of Lando, of course, that we thank Billy D. Williams for. Kira, want to see her back. Want to see Kira meet up with Maul on Dathomir. They work close together. Andy over at Hollow Chronicles has a great theory, and I'm all for this if it actually happens. But what if Kira was to adopt the Mara Jade storyline, and she studies under Maul and is able to maybe escape Maul's grasp, and she becomes the right hand of the Emperor, and we get that kind of storyline with her? I think that would be very fascinating if she would be trained as another apprentice. But if you're an apprentice to Maul, Maul's apprentices don't have the best track record, so I don't know if we really want to see Kira fall into that same trap. She is a character that maybe is disposable. I can't imagine she could live through the whole thing, but if she were, I think it would make sense if it was as the Emperor's right hand. It would be a great little reward for all those fans of the original EU. And then you get to play around a little bit more and how she's maybe a factor in things that we know about, like Operation Cinder, and the fact that apparently Palpatine cloned his body, and that's how he comes back in The Rise of Skywalker. I mean, maybe she has a larger role than we know in this moment, and that's also very exciting. Enfys Nest is another one that I think that could make a return. This was at the request of Shannon Moran, who is the host of Postcards from the Galaxy's Edge, also here on the Beyond the Blast Doors Network. And I want to make sure, I want to go back. I can't remember if I said it, but Andy, who I referenced, the co-host of Hollow Chronicles on the Beyond the Blast Doors network. But here, Enfys Nest would make a lot of sense, kind of like the remnants of, the remnants here of, not the remnants, but, the spark of the rebellion. And the fact that, she was trying to capture this coaxium to give to Saw Gerrera. So there is these ties of these rebel sects and how, when brought together, it is the Rebel Alliance. So really is interesting to see if there is more from her and her gang flying in the clouds, seeing if there's other heists that they're taking over in order to help supply and fuel this growing rebellion across the galaxy. And you see him here, Maul. I mentioned him once already. You have to have Maul in this sequel, and I talked about it with James. I'll say it again here. The story is best served as a series on Disney Plus, because if you do have a movie, the moment you bring in Maul or Kira, the story is overshadowed and it's hijacked, and it's no longer a Han Solo Star Wars story. The fan will then just care about, I think most fans will just be hyper-focused on Maul. Do a 6 to 8 episode season. Maybe it's 1 season, maybe it's 2, maybe it's 3, but you get to spend a lot of time with these characters. But also maybe when you look at a box office where it needed to be $500 million to break even and it doesn't even make $400 million, I'm not sure. It's going to take a lot of hashtag Make Solo 2 Happen days to convince Disney that it's worth revisiting. I think there is a really good shot at a 4 to 8 episodes, 1 season, and it's just, boom, here's some more Star Wars stories. We know that Alden Ehrenreich was contracted for 3 movies. Probably wasn't supposed to say that out loud, but he was contracted for 3 movies. Wonder if they have already bought him out of the remainder of that contract, or if they're still holding on to him in hopes of doing some more Star Wars stories. So those are the characters that I want to see back, and I think a lot of us here at Beyond the Blast Doors want to see those characters come back on the big screen. Alden, I mentioned him. I want to see what more he can do with the character of Han Solo. I mentioned this years ago when it first broke that there would be a Solo movie. It's hard to follow Harrison Ford with 2 characters, Han Solo and Indiana Jones. And I would never want to sign the contract for each role, but if the money is good and the script is great, then I guess as an actor you have to take that gig, because honestly, if you get into Star Wars or Indiana Jones, you cement your legacy for as long as people go to the cinema, okay? But Alden Ehrenreich, I think there were a lot of moments where there was something special happening there, and I think that there was a lot of stuff behind the scenes, and Ron Howard coming on there just in time to make this movie happen. If you believe everything you read, it'd be kind of cool to see the original vision for this movie. But there's a lot of improv here that Alden wasn't for, and it doesn't seem like Larry or John Kasdan were for. They wanted the script followed. You got that script here, directed by Ron Howard, and a lot of good stuff there. Would like to see what else he can do. See these stories that you can bring in from Legends. And this brings me to a great article that Round the Galaxies, Pete Fletzer, wrote for BeyondTheBlastDoors.com. He tackles some examples of stories about a young Han Solo from the EU that would fit really well. Crimson Dawn mentioned that already. Great to see that underworld, see the Pikes, and see these different syndicates across the galaxy working together. Honestly, it's the organized crime of the galaxy. Again, it is a gangster mob mentality, a great backdrop for a sequel Solo movie. The Hutts, we mentioned them already. Let's get them back involved. You don't have to go to Tatooine. You can go to Narhada. You can go there to the home planet of the Hutts, and you can explore something there. Maybe Crimson Dawn, there's a threat that they're causing there. I mean, who knows? There are limitless potentials. What we do know from a tweet that John Kasdan put out last year, all the logos of the crime syndicates, it makes us believe as fans that if there is a next chapter, it's going to involve these crime syndicates, the Crimson Dawn, and it'd be great to see them go head-to-head against the very powerful Hutt family. And the number one reason to make this Solo 2 happen, as Pete mentions in his story as well, is the fans. The fan experience, the fans celebrating. This is what we saw on May 25th this year. The fans celebrate this franchise, a Solo Star Wars story that doesn't get enough love. We want to see Solo 2 happen. Now, I do want to bring this up. The 3 planets that we want to see visit. Now, on this list, I understand. I did Corellia because I think that we just saw it as a shipbuilding planet, and I want to see the vineyards where they make the Corellian wine. Another planet I mentioned, Tatooine, because the Hutts, at the time, retrospect, should have done Narhada. And Dathomir, I think of the 3 that I mentioned in this article, is the most interesting. Again, Kira comes to Crimson Dawn, is supposed to work closely with Maul and take care of this Beckett guy who's responsible for killing Dryden Voss. Again, Beckett dies in Solo. We know these things. Now, here's the thing. I am all for those planets, but I think, Narhada would be probably better than Tatooine because we've been to Tatooine quite a bit already. I mean, we just were on Tatooine for The Mandalorian in Season 1. Dathomir, to me, I think is the most interesting because not only is this the birthplace of Maul, not only because I think that it's so powerful on the dark side, we could get some play with the Sith here, as he meditates over his rage. But maybe you get like a Mother Talzin cameo. Maybe you get Night Sisters making a cameo. I'm going to be honest. I was really surprised. Like, Exegol is like a cool concept that was in Rise of Skywalker. I kind of thought that Dathomir or Malachor, two planets infused in the story of the Sith, already canon, thought those would have made a lot more sense. I want to see Dathomir or Exegol Dathomir or Malachor pop up here in whatever next Solo story there is. Obviously, I think Dathomir makes a lot more sense since they actually referenced it in the movie. So those are just some of the articles and some of the stories and some of the conversations that we had here on the Beyond the Blast Doors Network leading up to hashtag Make Solo 2 happen, May 25th. If you haven't caught any of those articles, I just kind of breezed through them, but it's content that we made exclusively on our website for you and out of the love we have for these movies. So go ahead and check that out. Something else that's on there that I think is awesome is Pete, in his unlimited amount of time that he can devote to things Star Wars, he came up with 8 story treatments, 8 episode treatments. He's literally blocked out the entire first season of the Solo Disney Plus series. So Lucasfilm, Disney, listen, we got some stories. We got some outlines. If you want those, by all means, we'll help you out. We'll give you those. I guess I shouldn't whore off Pete's work, right? I should let Pete do that. Pete should be able to talk to Disney and sell those treatments, or let them, maybe they're influenced by his treatments. I think they're pretty great. Again, it's at 8 episodes, and it's a lot of fun. Really proud of what we did here on the Beyond the Blast Doors Network. We wanted to show our support of this fan movement that in 2 years has really blossomed into something really cool and really positive. It's not about, a T-shirt. It's not about stickers or, it's not about making demands as a fan base. It's just really positive, fun Star Wars conversation. We're happy to be part of it and share it with you in this moment and honestly every day. Want to do a quick shameless plug here, and then we'll get to the fan questions real quick here on episode 82. If you like what you've seen or heard on this episode, please consider supporting our conversation on Patreon. Patreon.com. Just go to www.patreon.com/BeyondTheBlastDoors. We have exclusive content, giveaways, and a way to meet your favorite personalities here on our network. Right now, for example, you can join at the Grand Admiral the Grand Admiral level. I said the Admirable. I don't know what that is, but the Grand Admiral level, $12 per month, but it's $2 per each show. So we have 6 shows here on the Beyond the Blast Doors network. And each of these shows, we drop weekly episodes. So $2 to BTBD Live, $2 to Around the Galaxy, $2 to Postcards, $2 to Holland Chronicles. The list goes on and on and on. The Bombadcast. So that's how your money breaks down. So when you think about it, you're getting $2 per month for 4 episodes per show. That's pretty great. And we just want you to know that if you cannot or don't want to support our conversation on Patreon, that's fine, because we are just so glad that you're part of the Star Wars conversation with us. Whether you're watching the live shows, you listen to the podcast version of our shows, or you're interacting with us in the comment section on YouTube or on social media, again, we're so thankful to celebrate Star Wars stories and celebrate you, the people that we share those stories with here. This is our Star Wars conversation, and we're so glad to have you with us. Let's jump into the fan questions this week. I'm really excited about these questions. I got 3 great ones from 3 awesome fans that decided to take time to reach out to us. So Ion Cannon tweets at BTBD Live, how would you decorate your clone helmet to stand out from your brothers? I think this is a really unique question. One, it signifies that you're a fan of the prequels. Two, maybe you know a little bit about the Clone Wars. Maybe you know about the Micro series, or you know about the 2008 series that just wrapped up on Disney+, because this was a way that clones showed personality. And you didn't really have this with the Empire. The Empire had a bunch of different armor, right? You had the Stormtrooper, the Snow Trooper, the Scout Trooper, the Death Trooper. You had the heavy infantry trooper. You had the driver of the AT-ATs, the Imperial officers. You had the TIE pilots. You had the tech officers. We go on and on through the Star Wars story. You got the Sith troopers in Rise of Skywalker, right? So there's a lot of evolution there with the outfits, but those are all like mandatory, like uniformity that implemented on the troopers. The clones had a lot of freedom of what they could do. Whether you think of like Fives, or you think of like other clones from, Wolf, when you think of just these other clones throughout the Clone Wars series, they had different markings, whether that was the Republic emblem, or it was, again, Fives the hand, or if it was different markings. Some of them shaved their heads, did different designs with their hair. It showed individuality, which was such a morally complex, beautiful, ethical conversation about clones. Like, they're all clones, but they're people. And, like, what does that mean about the soul? Like, it's such a bizarre complex and really fascinating. If I was to do any kind of decorating on my helmet, and granted, I don't have a helmet. I wish I did. I would definitely want the Phase 2, Episode 3 helmet. And I'd probably just want the 501st, the original 501st with the blue markings. I remember seeing that helmet for the first time when they were promoting Revenge of the Sith in 2005. Maybe it was 2004 when that actually dropped, that image. But nonetheless, I always thought the blue clone troopers were so cool. And I love the story about 501st being Vader's fist, and I'm really into that. So if that's cheating, I'm not allowed to do that. I would say it would probably be there would be blue markings of some sort on my helmet and the entirety of my armor. I love that question. And the thing too is, depending on what kind of armor you're decorating, color actually means a lot more than just looking cool. I think a lot of it was about rank, even with the Clone Army, the Grand Army of the Republic. But you talk to like Jesse Buck, who is one former host of BTBD Live, who is now a new member of the Mandalorian Mercs. He will tell you that in Mandalorian lore, the colors signify elements of this individual's journey through life, and that's really powerful. And I think a lot of people really embrace that. I know Jesse spent a lot of time designing his Mandalorian armor and determining the color scheme for that armor. So it's something that some fans take very seriously, very cool. And again, if I could do it, I would like that classic Revenge of the Sith 501st helmet. And if I couldn't, I would spice it up a little bit, maybe give it a little more blue here and there. But no, that's such a great question, and I really do appreciate you reaching out. Ion Cannon, just one of the best out there. We also now have Patrick Covey, who's a good friend of the show, good friend of mine. We tweet all the time. Work is kicking his butt like it is mine, and I'm hoping that he gets some pleasure out of this answer that I give to his question, which is, with the High Republic content being pushed back to 2021, what will you be doing to fill that extra time? Talking about Make Solo 2 happen, that's what. Or did I make that joke already this episode? I think I did. Here's the thing. So the pandemic is impacting a lot, as we clearly know. And we can look forward to the fact that still here in 2020, we're going to get the Season 2 of The Mandalorian, which is very exciting. We know that the Jedi Temple, that Disney Plus series, is available. They're more geared for the younger fans and for families. If there's a void here, great time to go back and read those books that you haven't read yet, or you've read already, you love them so much. For me, it would be diving back into Claudia Gray's Lost Stars, which, by the way, on Beyond the Blast Doors Network right now, a incredible interview done by Pete Fletzer on Around the Galaxy, an hour or more with Claudia Gray, talking about Qui-Gon Jinn, Leia, how she develops characters, how she tells stories, and the Star Wars stories she wants to tell in the future. That's right now on BeyondTheBlastDoors.com, also on our YouTube channel. I I will be taking some time. I need to read. I kind of read the Padme novel that dropped last year. I have not read that yet. Obviously, we have a sequel, and Catherine Tabor, that was just announced that she's doing the audiobook for that. I got to get caught up there. I really want to go back through Chuck Wendig's Aftermath trilogy because I think that there's so much there for the taking, especially with The Mandalorian Season 2, and we're getting, Cobb Vanth might be a character we legitimately get in The Mandalorian Season 2. And if you don't know who that character is, maybe you need to go read Chuck Wendig's Aftermath trilogy. I think it would be a good use of your time. But that's what I'm going to do, man. And Patrick, honestly, that's a lot of content that's dropping. We know that Charles Soule novel is pushed. Claudia Gray's novel is pushed. There is another short story that's being moved. Kevin Scott is in that mix as well. And so that stuff is being pushed to 2021. This is a great time. If you haven't read Charles Soule's Vader comic, you don't know anything about Charles Soule, go read those 25 issues. You'll learn something pretty quick. I thought the Kylo Ren issue, it was a 4-issue miniseries. It was all right. Not my favorite. I would go with the Vader series. Claudia Gray, Master and Apprentice. You see it behind me. I think you see it behind me. Is it Tarkin, Ahsoka, Catalyst, Rogue One? Oh, it's behind Ahsoka Tano. I love that Ahsoka Tano figure. I absolutely love it. Honestly, you have no idea what I'm talking about, unless you're watching it. But nonetheless, I'm going back and I'm reading it, Masters and Apprentice, or Leia, Princess of Alderaan. Bloodline was a great novel that set up a lot of things with the sequel trilogy. So taking the time to go back and read. And Patrick, if I remember right, I'm pretty sure you've told me before that you have about a year's worth of canon fodder to sort through. So you've got your work cut out for yourself as well. So looking forward to keeping me updated on that. Thank you so much for that question. Let's go ahead now to our last question. Adam reaches out. He asks, what time period is the next Star Wars feature film going to take place? Well, I'm going to amend this because I'm going to say what I hope it is or what I think it is, because if I say what it's going to be, I'm going to get raked over the coals. I like the trend that we're on. We just got done talking about the High Republic series. We're going back like 400 years before the Skywalker saga, okay? So I think it'd be really interesting. Let's just push it back and let's actually do a, Knights of the Old Republic, Age of the Old Republic, and let's really get into like 1,000 years, Jedi at their prime, thousands of Sith on the battlefield, and let's transition into Revan going, or a Bane rather, forming the rule of 2, and what went into that complex. And there's so much stuff that you could draw on. I'm thinking there's elements that you could take from like Drew Karpyshyn's Plagueis novel. There's ingredients there that you could play with. Of course, that novel is not thousands of years ago for the Old Republic, but you understand there's references there that could be picked out for and applied to this movie. I don't know. Could Taika Waititi's movie be that movie? I think that would be incredible because he has a way of doing dark and humor and funny and adventure, right? I said funny and humor. I meant fun. It could be a thriller. It could be tragic. That's great. And then, you're wondering if that's the Kevin Feige project. Fingers crossed. Makes a lot of sense. They kind of work together in the MCU together. But kind of like Thor Ragnarok is like top 10 MCU movie. So would love to see that happen. I want to go back. I'm really scared because at some point, and maybe it just won't be as controversial as the sequel trilogy, because I think that at some point fans, they're either going to embrace the sequel trilogy for what it is, or they're just going to stop caring that it wasn't what they wanted. Meanwhile, millions more fans are very happy about that sequel trilogy. But I'm nervous to what happens after the Skywalker saga. Do you just go a few decades and it's Rey rebuilding the Jedi Order? Or something that I really liked, and it's kind of in line with what could have worked for a sequel trilogy, that Star Wars Legacy comic series with some great Star Wars storytelling. Of course, the iconic Jedi Master Luke Skywalker cover that I have in Mylar behind me somewhere. I think that people are naturally going to go either far into the future or far into the past. And as much support as there has been for the Clone Wars, I wish there was equal to playing around with the Old Republic. I also honestly like something with Force Unleashed. That I don't think that will ever become canon, but I think that was some great Star Wars story that to me is canon. That was to me that is canon, but for reasons obviously that it can no longer be. So because of that, I think I really want to see like a Roman Empire version of Star Wars. Like, let's go back to the old Republic and see what we can do with new characters. So maybe a test run for that is High Republic, right, Adam? Like, let's go back 400 years. Let's see what these new characters do with the fan base, how they react in book and comic, and maybe they can make an appearance on the big screen. And who the hell knows? Maybe this Taika Waititi movie is actually going to be influenced by this content that we're going to get now in 2021. All great fan questions, and I want you to remember that whenever you want to tweet a question to Beyond the Blast Doors, BTBD Live, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. But of course, to get the questions on the show, tweet us at BTBD Star Wars and give us those questions. We usually pull out a fan com link call to action the day of our show. And if you didn't already know, I mentioned it once already, but live always on Thursdays, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific on YouTube. You can also catch our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, your favorite podcast app. Just search Beyond the Blast Doors. You will find us. Episode 82. It's in the books. I'm really excited. We got to talk Star Wars. I get married on Friday. So if you're watching this in 2020, in like the next 72 hours from when I'm watching this, I'm married probably the next time we talk. Or if you watch this in like years from now, I've been married. Spoiler alert. So happy to spend some time with you talking Star Wars. Very excited to return next week for BTB Live. I will not be on streaming Star Wars this week. So as always, on Friday nights, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, you have streaming Star Wars filling in for me. It's actually going to be episode 25. Shannon Moran is going to be sitting in for me, and she'll be guest co-hosting with Pete Fletcher. So be sure you tune in. I will be celebrating my marriage to my newly wedded bride, so I will not be there, but I'm sure you will be, and you guys can let me know all about it, and I'm sure Pete will let me too. But this was special. Thank you so much. Thank you for the positivity that you spread. If you're a participant on the social media conversation, Make Solo 2 Happen was incredible. Again, a fandom that gets ridiculed a lot for negativity and its divisiveness, I think it really shined, a very small sect of it. And I want to see next year, not 30,000 tweets make this go viral and trend on Twitter and other social media platforms. Let's get it to 60,000, 120,000. Hell, let's get it to 500,000 people tweeting about this movie, and let's have fun. Let us celebrate Star Wars stories and the people we get to celebrate them with. That is the point of Star Wars. It's about family. It's about friends. And it's about just being good people. And sometimes getting an escape from the world when life hurts. And that's honestly sometimes when people turn to alcohol. Sometimes life hurts really bad and you just need a shot of Woodford Reserve Double Oaked whiskey. And that's okay. We all cope with the challenges of life a different way. Hey, it's been a lot of fun. We'll see you soon. May the Force be with you.
Thank you for watching Beyond the Blast Doors. Be sure to subscribe to our channel. Don't forget, give us a thumbs up and leave a comment. Beyond the Blast Doors, a Star Wars conversation.